Hello and welcome to the first in what it's probably going to be many videos about my shop build. I started working on this shop probably February of this year. It's now August and you can see there's not much of a shop here. There's been a lot of YouTube video series on workshop building and they all seem to happen so quickly. I think the reality is it's going to take a little bit longer than I expected. There's been no actual work on the shop site. I thought I'd give you a quick update or a quick overview of what I'm planning here, the work that's happened to date, and hopefully what's coming next. So we moved to this property in rural Oregon. We bought the place in October of last year. You can see our barn up on the top of the hill there. And I knew that I always had a great opportunity here to build a fantastic shop. This has sort of been my preferred shop location, and the plan is to build an 80 by 40 shop with a mezzanine level. So 80 along this way, 40 coming out here. Started probably in February or March, speaking to steel building construction people who build sort of steel warehouses, steel barns. So that's where you use sort of steel framing members and you put metal sheathing over it. And that was going to be my preferred method of building. I just like steel, like metal. That was also around the same time that Trump introduced the 25% tariff on steel, which increased the price of the shop by 25%. And so one thing I considered was moving the shop up there, which is slightly closer to the house. You can see there's a little tent up there right now. That would have been a slightly smaller shop, around 50 by 60, and that reduced some of the costs. But decided that this was really the best location for the shop. It's a bit further away from the house. There's a fair bit of land and a berm in between here and the house, which will reduce some of the noise. My current workshop at my house in Portland, or where we used to live, my machine shop was directly underneath the bedroom, and with lathes bolted to the ground, mills bolted to the walls. It really kind of precluded me doing any work if anyone in the house wanted to sleep. So it really shook the entire place. So having something that's separated by a good amount of earth from the house, I think is a good idea, particularly as we're looking at starting a family. And I hear babies aren't really soothed by the sounds of removing metal. So moving the shop out here is what we're going to do. So gave up on the steel building idea and have gone to a pole barn construction, post and beam. Certainly more affordable, but I think it'll come out to be a good building. We're out in a rural county. I thought it would be relatively easy to build a workshop space. I originally applied for what's called an agricultural exemption, which means you don't really have to go through the permitting process. You basically say, hey, you provide a site plan, you show where the shop's being located, make sure that it's set back appropriately from streets and roads, which this definitely is. And it's a one-page, or basically a two-page form. And I heard back from the county that I was rejected. A lot of folks, including the previous owners of this place, didn't apply for sort of any permits. That was one of the things that actually raised flags in my permit application, is you had to show existing structures, and two of the existing structures raised red flags. One is that the workshop or the garage that currently exists, that I'm going to be remodeling to make into my wife's nursery workshop, that was not permitted at all. No ag exemption, no permit whatsoever. County didn't like that. The other problem, which is turning out to be an expensive problem, like a lot of things are in construction, is that the driveway as installed, which runs sort of down from the road up there down to the house, currently runs on top of the existing drain field for the septic system. That was not what was shown on the permit application for the house's septic system. So I wanted to have a bathroom in their shop. The bathroom is going to go in the front corner over here. And the plan was to have a tank down here and to pump it up to the existing drain field. The county won't permit that because the current house drain field is not up to code, given that a driveway runs over it. So I need to build out a full new septic system out here. Also need to get power out here. Those two things have been sort of my key priorities before actually breaking ground on the actual site, is getting septic and power out here. So actually there has been some earth movement. You'll see we dug up a bunch of Scotch broom to clear out some space on this berm here. And down there is a 4-foot deep test pit, another test pit there, and another one up there. The test pits are required to do the percolation tests to make sure that the soil is capable of holding a drain field. I'm pretty confident that that should be fine. One of the challenges with building a new drain field is you need 450 linear feet of drain. And if you're going to do it in multiple rows, which is obviously better than one long line for a bunch of reasons, that takes up a lot of space. So typically you might do 5 lines of 90 feet. So you need 50 feet by 90 feet of space. Now, there's clearly a lot of space here, plenty of space to put a drain field. But this space up here in front of the shop, we want to keep that reserved for building hoop houses and possibly some other nursery-related structures. And I don't want to build on top of another drain field because that would be not great. So the other challenge is drain fields need to be set back from a structure. The county seems to be saying 50 feet right now, which is a fair bit. You can see I've got, I don't know if you can see it, but I've got a measure out there. That pit there is, I think 30 feet away, so that's a little close. So ideally we could get it up on that hillside there, or on that hillside over there. We wanted to plant an orchard across that hillside. If we put the drain field there, we probably won't be able to do that, but we have plenty of land to put an orchard somewhere else. So we have the test pits dug. I've drawn out the septic plan, which I've gone over with my contractor, who's the septic guy, and he's taking that in for permitting. Hopefully we'll get these perk tests done soon and get approved to start actually breaking ground, building out the drain field, installing the septic tank, and getting that hooked up. Well, not hooked up, but getting that all installed. I wanted to get that done first for a variety of reasons. One of which is that the Herb, the guy from the septic system place, he's a local guy, good guy. He can help with a lot of the trenching and some of the earthwork that needs to happen. And so I'm going to get him to actually grade out the site a little bit. I mean, it's relatively flat, probably a delta of plus or minus a foot over the course of the entire footprint. But we can get that graded out, that would be nice. Also need to get water out to the shop. We have a few sources of water on the property. Most of the sources for irrigation are actually pretty close to here. But the source that we use for potable water, for house water, comes from a spring which is down the hill that way, probably another 500 feet from here. There's no paperwork filed or plans filed for how that was actually installed. The previous owner was a pretty good DIY guy. But we have a note saying that there's sort of a little road here that somewhere between 6 and 8 foot down there is a pipe carrying water, and hopefully we can locate that. Given that the pump for the spring is at the bottom and that's powered from power up at the house, I'm hoping we can locate that power line and it runs parallel or in line with the water pipe, and we can tap into that water line and do a trench along this way out to the shop to get us water. So that's water and septic. The other thing that's taken a lot of time is working out how to get power out here. You know, all of the machines that I run right now at my shop all run off, you know, pretty standard 120, 20 amp circuits. I don't have any sort of high horsepower motors, but building a shop like this, I want to have the opportunity to get some bigger machines. And from everything that I've read online, more is better. So I was hoping to get 200 amps out here, and that way I could run larger welders, larger dust collecting for woodworking, some heavier horsepower motors if I want to upgrade my lathe and mill, which I'll probably do in the future. It'd be nice to get some old American iron. I saw a great anyway, I've been going into a lot of yard sales and barn sales, and it's amazing what you can find around here. But it'd be nice to have the power to run that. Power comes right now, I don't know if you can see it up on the hill. There's a pole, runs straight down to the house. I don't really want to show the house on this video. I like to keep some sort of privacy. But at the house there's a 15 kVA transformer. The line from the pole to the transformer is sort of under the auspices of Portland General Electric, the power company that serves this area. And so it's been a matter of coordinating with them, with the county, and with electricians to get power out to the shop. I think we went through a few different options to getting 200 amps out here. The house is currently on a 200 amp circuit, so the transformer should be able to support both of these. I'm not going to be running the machines full time, but I think the plan is to take a branch off the existing transformer, run it up to the shop that's up at the top of that hill, the garage shop, which was going to be my wife's shop. Put a meter base up there, because that's within sort of 100 feet of the transformer, and PG is comfortable running thick enough conduit to within 100 feet so that there won't be any voltage drop at the meter base. PGE wants to make sure that with the loads on any meter base they install, that they're not going to have more than a 4% drop in voltage. Now obviously you get voltage drops over wire, over distance. It's an ohmic load, and getting it out to here, I think if we're going to put the meter base here, that's 250 odd feet, and they're not comfortable running directly out to here. So we'll have a meter base up on the shop up there, and then have another line that comes to a panel which will be around here, which will be the power for the shop. So we've decided to go with another meter base rather than upgrading the existing meter base for a variety of reasons. Upgrading the existing meter base on the house would be a lot of work. We don't need more than 200 amps at the house, and it will require rewiring a bunch of things that just happen to be in the way, drilling through a bunch of concrete, which we don't want to do. So this, I think, is going to be the cheaper option. And so we are currently waiting for PGE to finalize their plans for how they're going to get power from the transformer to the new meter base on that shop. They say that's going to take about 60 days to get those plans together. But in the meanwhile, while I'm starting on the septic system, I will be able to do the grading for the site here, the trenching for the plumbing, trenching for the run from the corner of the shop here up to there, maybe doing some sort of minor land work there to get some steps cut in or stairs cut in to that berm, so there's a bit of a shortcut down to this shop, and get things started. All of this is happening in parallel with actually working on the building itself. So let's talk about the building for a second. I'll see if I can insert some of my plans in the video. So I designed the building myself. I used Fusion 360, which is not the right program at all for doing this. I probably should have used SketchUp, but I got started in 360 and just kept on going. It's not a particularly complicated building. It's going to be a single slope shed without a ton of internal walls. The short side is going to be facing towards us here. It's going to be 16 feet on the eave on the front. That'll allow for a 14-foot garage door. The drive will be behind that storage shed, which I'd like to move, storage container, which I'd like to move at some point, but it's not really in the way right now. It's kind of tough to see. I'll walk around and show you what the driving entrance would look like. Obviously we're not going to be backing semi-trailers down here, but I think if we're carrying machines on the back of a truck, having that headroom and clearance would be nice to bring anything tall in here. So the driveway would come around this way and lead you into the entrance, the garage door back here. I'm intending for sort of the garage area to be welding, grinding, places that'll be throwing off a lot of fine sort of metal dust, things that you want to keep away from other machines. I might do a light partition wall here. This will be a 16-foot wide section, so a rather narrow garage space, but certainly enough space for doing stuff. So it'll be 16 feet this way, 40 this way, maybe divide it in half, use the back area for a little bit of woodworking, which also throws off dust that you want to keep out of mills and lathes and things like that. So that's sort of this space here. A large central space will be for machining, for assembly, just a big room. So we have 16-foot bays on each end, then 12-foot bays in the middle. 12-foot is a more standard bay size for a pole barn, but the 16 feet on the ends give us two advantages. One, we get to have a nicely partitioned 16-foot garage space, and then we have a 16-foot space over here, which is actually going to be a couple of different things. So the man door, the person door, sort of main entrance is going to be right here. There'll be a door in here, bathroom over in this corner here, bathroom plus sort of plumbing room. I'm going to be doing a concrete slab. I'm going to insulate under the concrete. I've been looking at this product called Crete Heat, which is sort of a combination XPS foam plus vapor barrier, plus it has these knobs in it which make it relatively easy, I believe, to install PEX tubing, so I can actually radiantly heat the slab. Thinking a 4-inch slab, fiber reinforced. It's not going to be sort of a structural slab given this is a pole barn, but that should be a nice slab. Anyway, so bathroom in this area here, and this front half is going to be sort of an enclosed office space for working on electronics, optics, things that I want to keep relatively clean. This is going to be the tall side of the building here. The under eave height there is going to be sort of roughly 22 feet tall, which will give us room to put a mezzanine here. So we'll have 9 feet up to the ceiling, then 1 foot space for the floor joists, and then a sloped mezzanine room up here, which will be just a place to, I don't know, store things, maybe a place to just camp out, have lunch, just get away from machines for a little bit, and possibly a place with a more of a view. We're sort of nestled here amongst the fir trees, which actually provide some pretty important wind breaks for the property. But there's a nice little break through here where you get to see down in the valley a little bit. In terms of building orientation, south is roughly that way. It's not on any particular ideal orientation if you're thinking about photovoltaics or solar hot water. That did concern me for a little bit, but if I want to do that, I can actually put those up there, and there's a relatively short run for either heating the water for the radiant floors from panels up there, or providing solar power to the building. One of the good things about this orientation is it just sort of sits well on the site, and it actually provides, I think, some good opportunities for some indirect light, and also for letting cool air, which runs down. I can actually feel it right now as I'm speaking. Runs down off the top of the hill and runs down here. And with windows on this side and windows on the back side, I can get some nice cool cross ventilation in these warmer summer months. I think it's going to be 95 today. I guess that brings us to the topic of systems and insulation. Want to keep this building to be, comfortable. I'm not going sort of super crazy green. You probably get some sense that it's going to be a little bit more than a standard shop, given that I'm planning on doing the insulation under the slab and radiant heating in the floors. I looked at a variety of different options for insulating the walls and the roof. There are a few different ways that you can structure the way the sheathing is attached to the girts and the roofs to the purlins in a pole barn. I'm doing it in a way in which I'll be using 2x6s, and so I'll have a 6-inch wall cavity, and I'm planning on spraying closed cell foam, or getting a contractor to do closed cell foam in the walls and the ceilings. I'm getting conflicting advice on the thickness of the spray to do here. According to a couple of closed cell spray foam people that I've spoken to, and some stuff that I read online, going really more than 3 or 4 inches really is sort of a waste. They says it sort of reaches maximum efficiency at sort of 3 inches, and you're 98% or whatever efficient at that point. But that doesn't sort of get you to the R values that you hear of when you hear of super insulated buildings. And as I said, I'm not going too nuts on the insulation level, but I'm thinking of doing 3 inches all around, which gets me sort of R21 on the walls, which is more than adequate, I think, for the walls, but only R21 on the roof, which I'm a little bit concerned about. It also saves me from having to do a vapor barrier, given that I'm using the closed cell foam rather than open cell. If it does prove to be a problem, I guess I can always install Roxol or just regular fiberglass bats on the ceiling. So we're going to have metal sheathing on the outside, 2x6 members, 6x6 posts for all of the poles. Planning on sheathing it inside. The bottom run of sheathing around the interior is going to be cement board Durock. The idea behind that is that it's sort of resistant to stains and splashes from oils, and then planning on all the runs elsewhere to be plywood, and I'm intending to do that myself. Also intending to do all sort of the interior electrical myself. I don't want to mess with the interaction with PGE, so I'll get electricians to run from the meter base up there to the panel here, but I might get them to install just some basic lights so I can work in here, and then I'll do all of the outlets and lights and things like that myself. That shouldn't be too tricky. I'd considered sort of putting outlets in the slab, putting dust collection in the slab, and for the expense, I don't think it's worth it for me. I'm trying to sort of value engineer this. I don't want to be going nuts on this build. And some of the concerns that I have with doing all that stuff in the slabs, it sort of locks you into where tools go. And right now I'm working in a very small shop. And having this large space, I don't really know what's ideal. Obviously, I've read a bunch of stuff online, but I know what's going to work for me. I don't know what hobbies I'm going to have in 5 years' time, let alone 10 years' time. So I'll be fine with having dust collection along the walls and power drops from the ceilings and things like that. I think that should be fine. I would like to keep the dust collection and air compressor off the main slab. There's actually some space in this side over here, which is furthest away from the house and furthest away from the office space, where I can have dust collector and compressor on their own little slab outside, and that way can mitigate some of the noise. So these are all the plans. You know, been working on this, I don't even know how many months now. Let's call it 6 months-ish. Obviously, there's not a lot to see for it. There's been a lot of paperwork, a lot of debating on spreadsheets about how much it's all going to cost, and making sure that I don't go nuts with the expense. But hopefully we'll get it done sometime in the next year. I'm pretty realistic, I think, when it comes to building projects. I know they always take longer. I remember speaking with the sales guys at the steel building place. That was probably a February or March conversation. They're like, yeah, I think we could have it done by June. And that was if everything went right. If this was an ag exempt building, that would reduce the amount of time that it takes to get permits from the county. If the building began immediately, if we didn't have to think about power or septic, yeah, sure, they could probably get it up by June. I think the actual erection of the building will not take long. You know, maybe a week or two to put up the pole barn. You know, another couple of days to pour the slab, and hey, it's done. Yeah, my air quotes, done. But a lot of work goes in before that. A lot of debating between various different sites and orientations and construction types and understanding what the county wants. But yeah, it's been a slow, grinding process. But hopefully I'll have a great shop when it's all done. Looking forward to keeping you all up to date with the progress. Any questions? Hit me up below. See ya.